is brought to you by Squarespace. Hi there. So it has been a while since I sat down and just made some art for the sake of making some art. I'm sure some of you can relate to this, but I remember back in high school, whenever I was done with all of my obligations for the day, nearly every day, I would just sit down and make some art and draw what I simply wanted to draw. And specifically, I have been really craving just doing some full digital illustrations. I cannot remember the last time I sat down and did just like a full character illustration, planned it out, gave it a cool composition, like storytelling and meaning behind it. So the other little development that led to this video is that I have missed every major channel milestone that I have hit so far. I don't even have my silver play button on the wall somewhere. It is in the box in the corner. You wanna see her? It's just over here. I never put it on the wall. I really should do that. So what I wanna do this week is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time to kind of merge together these two concepts. This last week I put out a little post on my Instagram story saying that I finally wanted to make some full illustrations of some of your original characters. This is kind of what I always intended to do for one of those like channel milestone videos as a thank you to my audience. So I told you guys, send me some reference images and short descriptions to one of my email addresses. I'm just gonna pick the ones that speak to me and I'm gonna draw a couple of them. So obviously I'm not going to be able to go through all of the responses that you guys sent me, but let's have a little sneak peek and see what we're working with so far. So if we take a glance at my secondary email address, we will see that I have 382 responses because this is the only thing that I've ever used this email address for. And oh boy, I expected there to be a lot of these, but not nearly that many. Let's just see this one right at the top. Okay, first up looks like we've got some witches, maybe? Oh my god, cute! Oh wow, okay. Okay, I already love this so much. Oh, this is gonna be so hard. Cute. I am a simple woman. I see a girly with a sword, and I say, yes. Oh, she's so cool. Helena. Oh, you know what you were doing. I love her. I see big sword as well. Whoa, this is so cool. Oh, I love your art style, or like whoever drew this is so cool. You can retitle this video like Kira gets to look at pretty art. Oh wow, so you guys have such like detailed reference sheets of your characters. I could never. Like, look at all of this. This is incredible. Wow, multiple weapons. Wow, she's so cool. Ooh, big sword. Heterochromia, big sword, white hair. You kind of speak in my language. Ooh, the wings. Oh, I will say wings. I'm really bad at drawing them. Y'all are hitting me with the multiple pairs of wings. Another person with an extremely thorough reference sheet of their character and how like their character looks at different angles. There's an internal anatomy sketch here. I feel so bad about the documentation of my own characters looking at all of this. This is very cool. Spooky. Scary rabbit. I like that the title of this one is just Sword Lesbian OC for video. Sword Lesbian for video. Ooh, wow, we got like a mood board too. Wow, big sword, big sword, big sword. Stunning. We got ourselves a daemon. We got a little daemon who don't care. Oh, we have another winged. Oh, I'm not good at the winged people. I'm the wrong artist to ask to draw wings on anything, because whenever I do, you're gonna end up with something that's just disappointing to look at. I mean, it's very cool though. Oh, I love your art style. Oh man, when people draw hair like this, just so like chonky and floofy, it's very Ghibli-esque. It is very shape. I love anything that is shape. We have a fashion. Look at how fashion they are. Wow, you guys are so bird. You guys have to stop trying to get me to draw birds. I'm not good at it. Oh, the hair though. Oh, ooh, there's some hair involved. We have multiples. Ooh, I love this character. Oh, they have big wings. Oh, they're cool though. Ooh, Selkie with two bird companions. This trio of characters is really cool. Armor in big flaming sword. Armor with intricate design and big flaming sword. Is this the Willis that I know? Oh yeah, this is my Willis. Ah, look at you. I haven't seen you in a while. Check that out. Hey girly, I haven't seen you in a minute. This is just your classic big strong armor lady. We love to see it. Ooh, femme fatale Van Helsing. Does she have a werewolf girlfriend? Does she have a werewolf girlfriend? Oh, I'm offended once again by the fact that you guys just make way better reference sheets than I do ever. Wow, this is so thorough. Again, I really love the art style going on here. Like, your sketches are so cool. They have so much character to them. Oh, she's really cute. I love her hair. Her, like, little star-shaped hair spike. That's adorable. Moth. So obviously, I still have many submissions left. There are still literally hundreds that I need to look through. So I'm gonna go and do that. I'm going to read through all of them, look at all of them, and then I will, in spite of my indecisive Libra tendencies, let you know which characters I choose to draw and make into beautiful art. If you're watching this video, it might be because you're an artist with lots of little OCs that need homes so people can bask in their character designs and lore, and you can make your very own portfolio for them using this video's sponsor, Squarespace. My Squarespace site has essentially become a never-ending showcase of all of the OCs that I draw once and then never use again, but I can easily display that never-ending gallery thanks to their easy-to-use tools like automatic image scaling, which means I can continually upload new pieces to my main gallery with the click of a button, and Squarespace will do the arranging for me. And tools like their drag and drop website builder Fluid Engine allow me to customize every page on my site with my desired branding and website graphics, and I can even customize new pages like I did for my character profiles to give information on the characters I actually pay attention to, or my portfolios devoted to specific projects like the one I made for my werewolf dating sim. But if you're a more casual user, no worries, because you can also set up your site using one of Squarespace's professionally designed flexible website templates and build your brand easily by tweaking text, colors, and basic website blocks. And you can even easily set up a casual online store like I did and use a print-on-demand service through Squarespace's custom merch, and they'll handle inventory production and shipping for you. And with an array of accepted payment methods like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, nothing is ever out of reach for your customers. So if you're interested in setting up a website or portfolio to showcase your many unused original characters, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/pricklyalpaca to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks as always to Squarespace for sponsoring the channel this year. Now let's get back to it.
Okay, so finally, after much of my Libra indecision, the character submissions I decided on were Pandora, submitted by Starry Makes Art, Helena, submitted by Ren_0.0, and Carrie, Will, and Cody, submitted by Charlie. So first up we have Pandora, and I want to start by saying just how much I love this character design. I think that it is so cute. I love like the mostly monochromatic design, but then with like a touch of warmth in there. It's just so pleasing and complimentary, and it's also very maximalist, which you all know is very tailored to my taste. The people who submitted characters kind of varied how much information they actually gave me about their character in their email. Starry did include a little description of Pandora, so I'm going to read that for you guys. They say she's a girl who follows a very Gyaru/Lolita fashion sense, and she focuses on a lot of jellyfish and ocean motifs and mostly only wears blues and whites. Her lore takes place in a modern setting where she has mysteriously lost all of her memories and is forced to go about her life slowly trying to recover her memories and rediscover who she was. She's typically pretty quiet and introspective, usually only really acknowledging those around her and really not saying anything else the rest of the time. Because of everything she's going through, she starts regularly visiting her local aquarium, which has a pretty large jellyfish exhibit, which ends up being where she spends a lot of her time volunteering and eventually working. So one of my goals with these illustrations was to make them a little bit more artsy and throw like some symbolism into them. I haven't done art like that in a while, just like an illustration that is not just a straightforward character design or a generic pose of a character looking pretty. Like, I wanted to do something with these. So with each of them I tried to put the character description and backstory and everything into the idea behind the illustration. And since this character has amnesia and she's very introspective and she kind of just seems trapped within herself, like in her own mind, just trying to figure out who she was, the idea I came up with was to have her kind of floating in a jellyfish aquarium, just looking very peaceful but also somewhat vacant. I kind of wanted this illustration to try to visualize what she feels like when she goes to the aquarium and she's just sitting in front of the jellyfish tank and just lost in thought for hours. I feel like what I'm trying to capture with this illustration is what it's like to be in her head during that time. I also, with this video, wanted to challenge myself a little bit with composition and interesting poses and colors and really try to like stretch my artistic muscles a little bit. So for this one, I decided to go for an upside down pose that has like a little bit of perspective involved, and already this was a daunting decision because it challenged me the entire time. Especially drawing an upside down head from this angle was just so difficult, and I just couldn't seem to get it the way I wanted. So to start out, I just did a sketch, and then I did a little bit of like grayscale value work to kind of figure out what kind of coloring and background I wanted, because I was going for a very specific tone that I was trying to capture in my head. And from there, I knew I wanted to kind of paint this eventually, but I did go on to line art to see if I could just get like a very clean, basic, like flat color piece that I could then paint on top of and like really try to nail down the perspective and everything. Once I inked and added flats, I was able to kind of rough in a background and start playing around with the lighting and everything so that I could try to nail down the colors that I was visualizing in my head. I also went in and began rough painting in some of the jellyfish because I wanted a couple of jellyfish in the foreground to kind of frame the composition and like give it a little bit more depth. But it was at this point, whenever I was rendering it a little more, that I just could not get the head and face to look how I wanted it to. Whenever I did the initial inks for it, I really didn't like it. I didn't think the perspective looked very good, and I also was having a really difficult time trying to get her eyes to look in the direction that I wanted them to, and honestly, she kind of looked a little dead. Like, it looked like a dead girl floating in the water, and I was like, oh my god, that's so dark, it's not what I'm going for. So it was at this point that I looked up an actual reference photo on Pinterest of like an upside down head, and I decided to basically redraw the entire head at a slightly different angle, and from there that affected the shoulders and the proportions and the angle of the body, so I had to kind of go in and redraw the angles of everything and tweak the perspective, and it was really annoying. I don't know why I did this to myself. I should have worked from reference to begin with, but I was trying to like push myself a little bit. I shouldn't have done that. Finally, it was just getting a little bit too difficult to work with everything with the line art because everything was on separate layers, so I made kind of the bad decision to merge everything onto one layer and just start painting on top of that, but I neglected to color my line art beforehand, so I was just working with really dark line art and trying to paint on top of it and make it look good, and this usually works well if I like do a multiply layer and color my lines before I merge everything down or paint on top of it. It was just kind of a nightmare, but I continued on. I continued painting and trying to tweak all the colors and clean it up bit by bit, and at this point I did like the head like way more. It was finally coming together. I was getting the expression kind of where I wanted, but it was also really challenging to try and paint in all of the little intricate details that this character design has while also trying to keep the lighting in mind, because again, I was painting all of this on one layer at this point. But in the end, I did persevere. I wrapped everything up by adding a bunch of bubbles and painting some more rendering into the jellyfish, which were extremely fun to paint for some reason. I think it's the transparent watercolor brush or something that Clip Studio has, but it's really handy for painting jellyfish. I don't know if that information will be helpful to anyone. It's very specific, but now you know. At the end of the piece, I did try tweaking the colors a little bit because they weren't coming out exactly how I wanted. I was really trying to go for that really fluorescent coloring that you see in fish tanks at the aquarium. For some reason, it's just really pleasing, and I think I kind of got there, but it's also a little bit off, and I can't quite put my finger on what's bothering me about it. But all in all, I really like how this piece came out. It was definitely challenging. It's not exactly what I was going for from the beginning, but I had a really fun time working on it, and I hope you like it, Starry, and I hope you're able to see this video. So for this next one, we're taking it back to my comfort zone a little bit with Helena, which as soon as I saw this character's design, I was like, yep, I gotta draw it. It's just, you know, I have to. I don't really have any choice in the matter. She's so cute. I love her attitude, and she's got a big sword on her back, so that's just an added bonus for me. But Ren says about Helena, she's a 19-year-old demon who is very hot-headed and chaotic. She's currently hiding in the human realm with her best friend and possible lover Margot to escape the arranged marriage her father set up in preparation for her ascension to the throne. The only thing Helena wants in life is to explore the different realms, which is why she completely rejects her future of ruling the underworld. Her go-with-the-flow nature often leads her into wacky and chaotic adventures in the human realm, which is a place that she knows absolutely nothing about. I'm sure this is a very, like, demon goes to the human realm, hijinks ensue kind of character, and I absolutely love that. So with this illustration, I just wanted to have some fun. I just wanted to draw a cool girl in a cool pose holding a sword. Nothing new here. This is very much what you guys come to this channel for. But I also wanted to push myself a little bit to make the pose and composition interesting. So at first, my initial idea for this pose was to have her sort of like falling in mid-air with her sword kind of behind her back as if she's about to swing it down. And given I was doing like more of a portrait format for this illustration, it was really difficult to fit this pose within the composition and make it look natural. So I did play around with this a lot and try different things and like alter the angle of her elbows and the sword to like make it complement the general flow of the pose while also making it as natural looking as I possibly could. At a certain point, I did experiment with abandoning this initial idea to try to do something that had a little bit more perspective involved and more exaggeration. Drawing in more perspective and trying to wrap my head around like really extreme exaggerated perspectives, especially whenever it comes to action poses, is a bit of a goal of mine for this next year, but I am definitely not quite there yet. This was so hard to just try to come up with something good. None of it was looking good and it was not in my comfort zone at the time, so I just went back to that initial pose that I was working on and I tweaked it a bit, and I eventually got it to the point where I liked it and I was confident enough in it to move on to some line art. So given that the first illustration in this video was a little bit daunting for me and involved a lot of painting work, I decided to just go straight forward with this one and do line art and flat colors and cell shading and just do like a couple of details on top of that, nothing too fancy. Just as a peek behind the curtains, that first illustration was giving me so much trouble that I actually took a break from it in the middle of this video, and I actually ended up finishing that one last, and this illustration was the first illustration that I finished for this video. So I was like, I need a win. I just need something fun, and I also wanted to do a very like graphic sort of anime type illustration. Again, we're just having fun here. I also wanted to do a very fun and loose graphic flame background. So for that, I really messed around with a bunch of big, sweeping, wispy shapes. I'm not too sure what this character's abilities are, or if she is magic, or if she can control flames, but she just kind of seems like the kind of character that would. So I figured that would be a safe enough bet for the illustration, even if it's just like thematic flames, because she is a daemon, you know? For these illustrations, I also wanted to be a little bit more intentional with the color palette that I was using, because I really don't utilize a lot of like the standard color palettes in my work, and I kind of just go with what I think looks good, and my intuition is decent enough, but I'm trying to improve that this year. It's another one of my goals. So for this, I wanted to use a very complementary kind of orange, blue, red, blue color scheme. So I added more of like a deep royal blue to the bottom of the background to complement the red flames. And later at the very end of the illustration, because I almost forgot about this point in the character description, and then later on I was like, oh, I can do something with that. That would be kind of cool. Since this character is jumping realms and kind of exploring across dimensions, I thought it would be cool to add a portal behind her as kind of like a visual background element, as if this pose is kind of her hurling through a portal with her flames kind of preparing an attack. And even though a character like this would probably have more like a flame portal, I don't know, I thought that it would be cool to make the portal a little bit more blue, just to try to bring the color palette together a little bit more and try to separate the character from the background. Again, I'm not sure when you will see this pop up in the recording. It's probably the very end, but it does make it into the illustration. The finishing touches on this piece were mostly just rendering a couple of things, playing around with colors and cell shading, and most importantly trying to incorporate all of the little accessories and details that this character has in her design. I love how many little pieces of jewelry and piercings she has, and all of her belts and her big old boots, but it was a little bit daunting to try to like make sure that I got everything, and I still don't know if I've missed any pieces of her design, but I really hope not. All in all, this character was incredibly fun to draw. I had such a fun time working on this pose, even though like her shoulders and elbows and hands still look like a little bit wonky. It looks like at least a little bit uncomfortable, even if the anatomy is like serviceable. I do really like how the legs and like the face turned out. This is one of those pieces that almost doesn't quite look like my art style, but I kind of like that about it. And Ren, I hope you like how this piece came out. I hope that I did your demonic girl justice. Okay, last but very much not least, we have Carrie, Cody, and Will, and I absolutely fell in love with these character designs whenever I saw them. They are so cool. They have like this beautiful beautiful simplicity to them, but they are still so like rich and full. Like I can tell how individual these characters are just by looking at them, and just by looking at them, like I'm already interested in their story. And Charlie, I don't know if you did the art for the reference sheets that you sent me, but whoever did, like I also love the art style going on here. It's so good. I would totally watch some kind of animated work or read a comic with this style. It's just very shape and very nice, and I love it. So what Charlie said in their email is, "Hello, this is my OC Carrie. She's a Selkie who has decided to help two witches who have been turned into birds. She travels around going on adventures trying to figure out how to turn them back into people." And they go on to say the work that they live in is inspired by Celtic/Scottish mythology. So in the story they're from, Will has been turned into a raven or a crow. I'm not really sure, I can't exactly tell. And Cody has been turned into a snow owl. But I also really like the character designs for Cody and Will. They're both just so cool. I love the colors going on. I love how they look together. So as soon as I saw these designs, even though Will and Cody are technically birds in the current timeline of this fictional work, I wanted to draw both their bird forms and their human forms and find a way to also draw Carrie and turn all of that into like a cohesive illustrative piece. So immediately whenever I saw these designs, my brain started cooking and trying to figure out like a good composition where I could clearly show all that and also clearly show Cody and Will's bird forms. Coincidentally, I've been really inspired recently by a couple of different historical art movements, mostly like medieval art, specifically stuff that appears on tapestries, and also a little bit of the Renaissance and like the realism era, and finally Art Nouveau, because I'm really into art styles that manage to blend more graphic designed elements with a softer painterly style. I feel like that's ultimately the art style that I kind of want to go for myself eventually, because I just can't pick one between more of like a graphic line art style and more of a painterly style. So like, why not just blend the two? So for this piece, I looked at a lot of different like historical art to inspire my composition and general idea, and I also looked at a lot of modern art that's inspired by historical art, specifically a lot of graphic novel illustrations and book covers, because I feel like these manage to pull off these types of illustrations really well. So that's kind of what I settled on for this piece, something that is inspired by a book cover sort of illustration, but also inspired a little bit like by an Art Nouveau poster. And by adding a couple of those graphic window elements to this piece, I figured that's how I would kind of blend everything together and show everything at once while still having that composition and organization to it. So I started out with a rough sketch where I was trying to come up with good frames and windows to go on the side, and I came up with one that has Carrie in the middle and then Cody and Will off to either side with their birds flying out from behind Carrie, with Cody and Will kind of symbolically underneath. And I also added a circle element around both of them to kind of show that like their souls or their beings are kind of like imprisoned. They're kind of like captured within these two birds. And in the center I of course showed Carrie using her magic, which I assume maybe is a factor in like freeing them from their bird forms or something like that. But either way, I liked the shape language and everything that her magic has in the reference sheet, so I wanted to include it. So the graphic frame element of this piece is definitely not my strong suit at all. I really love this style. I think it's so pretty and I really want to get a lot better at it. So this is very much a practice piece for me because I have very limited experience whenever it comes to graphic design or anything that is very like precise or like clean. My art style tends to be very like messy and sketchy. So this is definitely something that I want to improve on because I want to bring more of these elements into my illustration work. So for the frame motifs, I mostly decided to go with like some feathers and eyeballs and some like celestial and star looking motifs. Since this is folklore inspired, I also wanted to bring more of like a storybook vibe to it, but more of like a Brothers Grimm storybook vibe. I wanted it to appear a little bit dark because like that seems to be the vibe of a lot of mythology like this. It usually isn't like super happy and uplifting. So I added a bunch of spindly little tree branches branches around some of the frames, and I just left them completely bare and dead because I feel like that conveys more of a tone than adding like flowers or something like that. I also wanted to add cool backgrounds to each of the frames that conveyed something about the character, and even though I don't know like a ton about these guys, I decided to go for like a bit of a stormy ocean background for Carrie because she's a Selkie and I feel like that fit. And then for Cody and Will, I did pretty basic like tree limb backgrounds, but there also seems to be some kind of sun, moon, celestial motif going on with them. So to complement their color palettes a little bit more, I gave Will a daytime background, like a dawn, like sun coming through trees vibe, and I gave Cody a nighttime background with a bright full moon behind his owl. Since for this piece I wanted to go for a split between a more graphic style and a more painterly style, this time I once again started out with line art so that I could make all of the characters really clean and make sure I nailed down their general expressions and character designs before I went in and started painting. And from there I did flat colors and then started experimenting a little bit with some rough lighting and shading before I fully went in and finished up the character designs and fully went into the whole painting process. Something I was really trying to capture with this illustration was a pretty specific color palette and then also a lot of really magical lighting and atmosphere. There's a lot of bright lighting elements in this piece, so I wanted them to reflect properly on all of the characters whenever I rendered the lighting, but I also wanted them to work well for the composition and not be too bright and overwhelming, and I also wanted them to like properly guide your eye around the illustration. In the end, I think that I was pretty successful at doing all of those things. I'm really pleased with how it came out, but it was definitely a little challenging to make that all work together well. But I would say one of the biggest things that helped was just intentionally going in and painting over some of the existing lighting that I had and really trying to intentionally render things and add shading where I thought it looked good and lighting where I thought it looked good. It was just a very illustrative process, and that was a ton of fun to do. I also decided not to go too heavily detailed with the frame because I didn't want it to take away from the focal points of the characters and their faces. So even though I did kind of want to go in and add like little scenes in the frame or something like that, I kind of kept everything mostly like flat colors, limited color palette, everything's mostly muted, not too saturated, and I really tried to exercise self-control and put most of my focus on the characters themselves. I probably ended up working on this illustration for about 10 or 12 hours in the end, but it was all really worth it. I really like how everything came out in this piece. I think the color balance and the lighting especially came out looking almost exactly how I wanted it to, and I also really like how I was able to stylize the characters and put them into my more semi-realistic art style. I think this piece definitely ended up with the dark fantasy storybook vibes that I was going for, and Charlie, I hope you think I did your characters justice. I really love them, and thank you again, all three of you, for submitting your characters. They're so lovely. Here are the finished pieces, and welcome to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, even though it was definitely something new. I have seen other people do this before, and it just seemed like a lot of fun, so I wanted to try it, and it was a lot of fun. I had an absolute blast drawing these. It was so fun just to do some like art for art's sake. It feels like I haven't done that in so long, and so much of my illustration work is like design focused, and sometimes I just want to like draw a pretty character and focus on like the art side of things. So thank you so much for submitting characters and allowing me to do that. And if you guys enjoyed this video, I would really like to do it again, and depending on how much you guys like it, I would even love to make this a regular thing, like do one every couple of months. So please give me feedback in the comments below if you liked it. Do all the YouTube things so that it does well, and if it gets like a good amount of likes, I think that I'm probably going to do this again because there's already more characters sitting in my inbox right now that I want to draw that I didn't get a chance to draw in this video. So odds are, if you guys like it a decent amount, it's gonna get a part 2. Also, sorry this video is late. It was supposed to come out on Christmas Eve day, but unfortunately the executive producer was having some health issues towards the end of last year, and I just had to take care of her for a while. She's doing okay now, so don't worry, but that's why this video is coming to you guys a little bit late. But as I'm sure all of you well know, vet bills are very expensive, so thank you so much for watching this video. That really helps me, and as always, the biggest thank you for this video and every single video I make goes to my patrons, and especially my executive producers. Jenny Craftsma, Lucifer, I Do TKD, Ren, Bandolph the Yellow, Cloud Max, Marita Wasner, Velly Smelly, Stabby Seahorse. Holding space for me, that Espresso, Ember Creeps, Cardia X, Christina Kimtia art, Call Me Ash, Blaze Ravenscar, Lunira, Fiasco, Mossy Raven, Automatopoeia, and then just, it's backwards. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not saying that name on the internet. ABW Makes, Iskavan, Awendu, Liana, Ermler Breeza, Brian, Phoenix, PNG Not Found, Freedom and Gus Gus, Cat, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.